Hi, my name is Charisse Janelle, and you are listening to Chapter 3 of Barbara Conklin's P.S. I Love You, Book Number 1 of the Sweet Dreams book series by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Chapter 3. You're not going to take all of those books. I was crouched in the corner of my closet, sorting out my novels when my mother entered my bedroom. I had shot out of bed while it was still dark, hoping I would get a chance to pack all my books, especially the ones by Susan Howitch, and then I'd shove them into the back of the trunk with a blanket or something spread over them. I'd hoped Mom wouldn't notice them. I knew we needed all the space we could get, but there are some things that should have priority. I'm just trying to make more room in the closet, I lied. For the Gretels and their 3 kids. I put a heavy accent on the word 3, figuring maybe she would have second thoughts. 3 kids could do a lot of damage to a house. That's very thoughtful of you, Mariah, my mother said, smiling. Just stack them up as neatly as you can and come downstairs and help me with the kitchen and living room. My goodness, I didn't realize you had so many books. It's a good thing she doesn't know I stacked some in Kim's closet, too, I thought, quickly sliding closed the closet doors. My mother went on with her orders. The carpet needs a final going over, and maybe a quick mop on the kitchen floor, too. They should be here by noon. We'll have to leave right after they get settled. The main important thing to me was to get my books into the trunk. Oh, she would find them after we got to Palm Springs, but then it would be too late. As soon as she was out of sight, I grabbed the box I'd hidden the night before and frantically stacked the books as tightly as I could. Carefully, I moved down the staircase, thankful that the thick brown carpeting muffled my steps. Then, as fast as I could, I struggled with the box out to the car. We keep an old beach towel in the back of the trunk all the time, left over from the trip to Lake Arrowhead we'd taken almost a year ago. I laughed to myself as I carefully tucked the raggedy blue towel around the box, knowing my mother would be too busy to notice. In a flash, I was back in the living room, pushing the vacuum cleaner around like my mother had requested. I finished quickly as my mother flashed by me with a suitcase. "Thanks, Mariah," she said. "Make sure you don't forget any of your clothes. We'll be gone till the week school starts, so pack carefully, but don't overdo it." I was halfway up the stairs when I heard my mother's voice. "Mariah!" I knew what was coming. She'd found the books. I ran back down the stairs and headed for the car. She didn't have to say a word, but if looks could kill, I'd be dead right there on the spot. The box of paperbacks was heavier going up the stairs than coming down. I wondered angrily if Susan Howitch ever had a mother like mine. Here I was, with so much inside of me that wanted to get out, with so much that the publishing world was waiting for, and my own mother was fighting me. Reluctantly, I shoved the box of books in the closet, the old beach towel still on top of them. I sat down on my bed, in the pits of depression. I could hear the waves crashing on the rocks below. Sulking, I concentrated on the rhythmic pounding. I was so used to the sound that I never really heard it anymore unless I listened carefully and turned off the rest of the world. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me from the bed. They were early. I knew my mother would be upset because she'd wanted more time to get us ready. Looking down from my bedroom window, I watched the Gretels climb out of a new, sleek silver Thunderbird. The car was overflowing with boxes and suitcases. Even a bright red surfboard was strapped to its top. I could tell from my upstairs view that the surfboard was brand new. If you've ever gone to a circus and watched a whole big bunch of clowns pile out of a little car, you can imagine what the Gretels looked like. The car itself was not terribly small, but they had really overdone it. I couldn't imagine anyone needing all that stuff. just to spend a summer at our house. I watched my mother shake hands with Mr. and Mrs. Gretel. Then I saw two small boys, maybe about 6 and 8, and a girl with long blonde hair who looked about my age, maybe a year older. She was about my range in the skinny department, but when she turned, I could see her figure was definitely better. There was no doubt about that. And then she stood still and looked up. Her complexion was like my mother's, a cream color with just the lightest bit of rosiness on her cheeks. A stray lock of yellow hair caught in her mouth when she turned in the ocean breeze, and she quickly pulled it away. Her eyes were a definite blue, like a light blue marble I found on the beach one day, and when she smiled up at me, her white teeth sparkled. She was definitely pretty. I ducked back out of the window then, knowing I was expected to help out. Kim, ahead of me on the staircase, was terribly excited. "They're here already!" "I know," I said miserably. Somehow I had hoped they had changed their minds about the whole thing. Now that they were here, we'd definitely have to leave. It was so final. Elaine Gretel smiled easily and talked pleasantly to her parents. She seemed all right to me. Her little brothers, on the other hand, pushed and shoved each other all over the place, reminding me of Amy's horrible kid brothers. "Tony, Mark," their mother called out every once in a while, "if you don't stop, you'll have to go directly to your room." She was calling one of the bedrooms theirs already. I helped Elaine upstairs with her suitcases, and we stood in the hall until my mother joined us. "Elaine, you can take Mariah's room," she instructed us. "The boys will stay in Kim's." Well, that was one good thing, I thought, breathing again. I was sure that any girl who looked like Elaine would never ruin any of my things. I had worked so hard for 2 years now fixing up my bedroom to look just the way it did in one of the magazines. I didn't want some stranger to ruin it all over the summer. Elaine loved my room right away. She wore jeans and a bright red shirt, and she had a white sweater thrown over her shoulders, the sleeves tied around her neck. Her blue beach walkers showed off her soft pink painted toenails, and when she touched the yellow pillow on my rocking chair, I could see they perfectly matched her neatly manicured fingernails. I watched her walk over to my vanity with the yellow and white organdy skirt and touched the 3 mirrors. "It's great for doing your hair," I told her. "You can see all angles that you might otherwise miss. Sometimes I think I've got it just right, but then I'll pull the side mirrors forward a little and I see I've a mess towards the back." "I know," Elaine said, but I didn't believe she could ever have trouble with the sides or the back of her hair. My mother called me from the downstairs hall. "Come on, Mariah, we don't have all day. I'd like to get on the road before the worst heat hits the desert." And so my last few moments with my new friend were spent with me running around, making sure I wasn't forgetting anything. I checked the closet and then the drawers, and then quickly scooped up 4 books. If I didn't have enough time to write one, at least I could study the ones I'd chosen. Quickly, I threw them into my straw beach bag where my mother would never find them. "Goodbye," I said to Elaine. "Have a good summer in my house." And then, just as I was about to leave, I had an afterthought. Leading her over to the window, I pointed out a group of black rocks where the seagulls were sitting. "That's a good place to sit and think, and to be really alone. I sit there quite a lot." Elaine smiled and touched me lightly on the shoulder. "I guess I'm a lot like you. Sometimes I need to be alone too. Thanks for showing me your rock." I never thought I'd see the day that I'd share my rock with anyone. End of Chapter 3. Commentary on Chapter 3. Growing up in the 1980s was a lot different than 2025 in a couple of respects. When Mariah's mother tells her that they need to get on the road before the worst heat hits the desert, this is a real concern. Growing up in the southwestern United States, summer temperatures can easily shoot up well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And cars in those days could overheat and leave travelers stranded by the roadside. Cell phones were not a thing yet, and so if your car overheated, you would have to rely on the kindness of strangers driving by. Another comment that I wanted to make was an observation about the way Mariah describes Elaine Gretel's femininity. During the 1980s, dressed in preppy-style clothing and being well-groomed was considered an asset. Of course, this trend decidedly changed in the 1990s when the Pacific Northwest popularized the grunge music movement and also the more earthy clothing and grooming styles. Thanks for listening to Chapter 3 of Barbara Conklin's P.S. I Love You by Bantam Books, copyright 1981. Join me tomorrow as we dive into Chapter 4 of the Johnson's family adventure to Palm Springs, California.